Hi, everyone. My name is Alison Jeske, and I am Mile High SHRM's president.
G'day, everybody. It's Emma Doyle here. I am a performance under pressure coach, bringing you this presentation, What Do All Champions Have in Common, for the Human Resource Mile High Society Virtual Conference 2022. I'm going to be sharing with you the 5 common traits that the top 10 male and female tennis players share in common. I'm also going to be sharing in 1 to a maximum of 3 words what makes a great coach, because having a coaching culture in the workplace is the way of the future. The coach as manager, mentor as leader is what's going to make the difference within your organization as we move forward into this new normal. So I hope to see you there. I hope you take action, engage in the chat box, and always believe, in the words of Ted Lasso. Please take action, because the ball is always in your court.
Good morning, HR professionals, and welcome to our very first early bird session at our virtual conference here today. The session is going to be What Do All Champions Have in Common, presented by Emma Doyle. Emma is a tennis coach turned corporate coach from Melbourne, Australia, helping you turn your motivation into activation. She has been coaching for over 30 years, and through her keynote speaking, mentoring, coaching, and consultancy, she inspires, improves, and impacts coaches, teams, and corporates worldwide. She is a high-performance coach with a strong background as a tennis touring professional, having represented Australia on 20 different occasions. She is qualified as a PCC IFC coach, NLP, and emotional intelligence practitioner, helping individuals and teams unleash their potential. Her book is titled What Makes a Great Coach, and she is always curious about how coaches in the sporting and corporate worlds can live these qualities. Please join me in welcoming Emma Doyle.
G'day, everybody. It's Emma Doyle here, and welcome to What Do All Champions Have in Common? Now, this is definitely a question that all athletes, all dream seekers, aspiring business people are curious to learn more about. So I'm so excited to bring you the 5 traits that all champions have in common. And just a quick shout out, thank you to the Mile High Human Resource 2022 HR Virtual Conference for this opportunity to present. So I've only recently moved to Colorado from, you could probably tell from the accent, from Melbourne, Australia, and I've been in coaching for 30 years. The first 20 years, predominantly in tennis, represented Australia 20 times as a coach, and now working with companies in helping them perform under pressure. That's what I'm all about, and I know that's true in the workplace and also on the sporting field. So thank you so much for being here, and please take action. Please join in. Just let me know straight away in the chat box if you are excited to be here, and are you curious to know what all champions have in common? So please let me know. Let's start with a quick little who am I? Now, in the chat box, I'd love you just to think about this famous tennis player. That's one picture of him when he was a little tacker. And I'll give you another little hint here. This is a little game of who am I to get us all going, get us excited in the chat box. You can see maybe in the face that might resemble somebody that we otherwise call the GOAT. I love that his hand is sort of halfway up the racket there, making it easier for him to hit. And drum roll, ting. Let's see if anyone got it right in the chat box. It is, yes, the GOAT, the one, the only Roger Federer. Now, a little carrot, if I may, to dangle in front of you right now is that at the end of this presentation, I'm going to reveal what Roger Federer said to me about what makes a great coach back in 2014. So I'm going to be sharing that answer with you at the end of the presentation. So stay with us. All right, let's play another game of Who Am I? I love this pick. I love the smiles. I love the energy. I love the way that they're shaking hands like that. Of course, it is Venus and Serena Williams. I had the opportunity to work at the Bollettieri Tennis Academy when I was in my 20s, so just the other day, of course, and I was learning the look and trying to become the best coach that I could, and certainly I had that opportunity to finally ask Serena Williams when she came off the practice court, and I wanted to ask her all these questions about coaching and tennis, and all she wanted to do was talk about shopping down Chapel Street and the great coffee that lives within Melbourne. So as you can imagine, we need to reinforce the importance of building rapport with the people that we're talking to before we can get to where we want to go. So I love that little story. And what a great ambassador both these women have been to the sport of tennis. Let me know in the chat box too, do you play tennis? And speaking of you, I remember back in the early days when I was a tennis coach, I went to this talent ID day for young female players. And I'll never forget when, they said to me, hold out your left hand, and that in the picture A, the example A here, if the ring finger is longer than your index finger, then potentially the person in front of you may have been exposed to more male hormones such as testosterone in the womb during pregnancy. And I was like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. So we didn't make the kids hold out their hands, of course, or the players hold out their hands. But I am curious, as I said that, were you be honest in the chat box, did you already have your hand out and you're already looking at it? And of course, if your index finger was longer than your ring finger, you're exposed to a little bit more estrogen during the pregnancy months. So, and if it's half, then who knows? No, I'm joking, of course. The most important message here that I want to share is we really can develop and nurture talent, which we will get to throughout this presentation. Because really, if you said to me, one more game of Who Am I? This person in this picture at 10 years of age was going to become number 13 in the world in tennis. I mean, would you be able to pick that no matter, looking at the fingers, regardless? Would you be able to see that? So anyone want to have a guess on this one in the chat box? A little who am I? Who is this Australian? There's a little clue, Australian professional tennis player. I'll give you 5 seconds. Thinking. And it is Nick Kyrgios, the bit of the bad boy of tennis, whether you like him or not. It's interesting from the perspective of talent, how we attract it, how we retain it, and how we nurture it. When we think about that, and we think about you're sitting here in front of the screen right now for this virtual presentation, what do you and I share in common? Because I've actually been coaching since I was 14 years of age. I knew I wanted to be a coach really, really early on. So I was thinking deeply about that vocation within me. The core of my being is I'm a coach, and HR managers and what we share in common. And there's no doubt, as the shadow here represents from the tennis player, is that we see potential in others. And certainly from that early stage, sort of chapter one of my coaching career, especially in the world of high performance tennis, we're measured by our results. And so winning and keeping your job, and especially at the highest level of sport, is a huge part of whether you get fired or not, whether you win or not. And I think in the corporate world, that really does equate to profit. If you're making a profit and things are going well and you're winning and you're hitting your targets, then we have that in common. We see greatness in others, and it's important that we take care of the bottom line. So I just wanted to share that right off the bat early on about what we share in common. And okay, one more little game of Who Am I in the chat box to take action. Does anyone recognize this person? And it's not a tennis player. So now I'm just shifting a little bit here. It is someone who is in performance coaching, arguably you would say one of the godfathers of the coaching model, the GROW model. And I want to share another connection between him and tennis. So another few seconds in the chat box. It is Sir John Whitmore. Yes, Sir John Whitmore. And he actually used the concepts from the inner game of tennis. to create the grow model. Two things that really stood out for him in this book. Number one was that the opponent within one's own head is more formidable than the one on the other side of the net. So that was concept number one. Concept number two is if a coach can reduce and help to reduce those internal obstacles to performance, an unexpected natural ability will flow forth without the need for much technical input from the coach. So I love those two concepts that he gathered from the inner game test, which I love that he used that to really help define what coaching is. And again, just connecting with you, because this is what we have in common. Coaching is, or human resource management is, unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. And I wanted to share that just to really set the scene of how important coaching and creating a coaching culture in the workplace is in today's society. Make no mistake about it. All right, so that was just a little icebreaker to get us started with our little Who Am I game. And now I just want to share with you the structure of the webinar so you know where we are heading. There are 4 parts to this webinar. We're going to talk about the why, the motivation behind why you're here, and some of the common problems that we see in some of the solutions straight off the bat. Number 2, I'm going to be sharing the 5 strategies of what all champions have in common, which is the what, and of course, the how, the tactics. How do we bring that to life? And how can we make an impact in the workplace? And then, of course, the game plan, which we call the now. Talent is not nearly as important as execution. And you don't really have to agree with anything that I say. You just have to be super, super curious. Curiosity is the superpower of coaches, managers, leaders, for us to live alongside a world of technology. So that is our webinar structure. Number 1, the why, the motivation, getting to that the core of some of the issues and some of the challenges that you face. And certainly some of my experience in working in corporate Australia. No surprises. I know you're sitting here going, Emma, I know this is what my life's been all about, the great resignation. Really, I'm sure we'll all agree that with companies and individuals have had to navigate the ripple effects of the pandemic and reevaluate how you retain talent. There's no doubt also that globally, everyone on a personal level is reconsidering everything, and especially their value to the organization, their alignment to the organization, their contribution to the organization, and whether they feel valued or not and aligned with the company mission. They've been questioning everything about work-life balance. How much time do I want to spend with my family? How much time do I want to commit to work? And what sort of boundaries do I want to put in place? Which has led to, of course, this loss of talent. People have been resigning at record numbers. And so this is a real issue. So I'm all about flipping problems into promises and into solutions. And what can we do about it? And again, what do you and I share in common? We share in common this ability. We have to attract, we have to retain. And of course, in my world, we have to coach talent. And how do we do this? One of the most important things is this notion around them feeling supported, employees feeling supported, feeling challenged, and finding that balance between support and challenge, and praise and challenge, that sort of tipping point there, so that they do feel valued. It's one of the most important reasons to help them stay where they are and continue to grow. A bit like one of the workshops I ran with VaynerMedia. There's Claude Silver, the Chief Heart Officer, at the front there. We did an Empower Hour that I'll touch upon later in the presentation, but they do an excellent job of finding that balance. So please follow Claude Silver if you don't already. And this notion of flipping work-life balance into work-life integration, we've already moved forward to the new normal. And so it's really about, and some of my work's been around helping companies with this notion of, rather than balance, integration. Maybe a meeting might take place when you're walking your dog. So you've been able to maximize your health benefits and get some exercise in and have a meeting while you're doing that. You're integrating it into your lifestyle. There's no doubt this is the what we call moving forward to normal. so that ultimately, at the end of the day, my goal and your goal is very similar, and that is we want high engagement. High engagement equals team productivity. Team productivity equals high performance behavior, and high performance behavior equals profit. ROI equals IOR. We call that a Sherpa formula back in Australia. Your return on investment equals improvement on relationships. That high engagement piece, super, super important if we want to attract and retain talent, which we all do. Okay, so go ahead in the chat box and just have a reflection on what your challenges are. What are some of the things that you're facing? And just take this time to really think about 2022. You're at the end of 2022. What is it that you imagine for your company and for yourself? So if you can take this time, just have a little reflection, even if you need to pause right now, write it down. And I'd love to see it in the chat box. What are some of the challenges you're facing? And can you relate to some of the ones that certainly I've observed back in my home country? So somebody that I coach within my executive coaching program, she's the director of global learning and development for the company of, drumroll, ting, yes, Uber. So why do I want to bring this up as an example? Well, during one of our coaching sessions, she was reflecting on their recent values. They've upgraded their values as of October 2021. And one of the things, and please check them out because they're really simple yet really brilliant. And the first thing that I loved is that their values are more than just values and words on a paper. They're shared beliefs. And we have to love that. I'll be making some Ted Lasso references. Any Ted Lasso fans, please just put yes, love the lasso in the chat box. But I've got my little ball here that says believe. And I love that. Having belief in the values is so, so important. Again, how we attract, retain, and coach our workforce. But it begins with the mindset. And so this is straight off their website, the mindset that they embrace. Mindsets we embrace. It starts with mindset. Make no mistake about it. Whether I'm dealing with a high-performance athlete or in the corporate executive coaching world, it begins with your mindset. Then you make a choice, and then you take action. Those three things I live by, and I highly recommend that you have a think about how those things play out within your workplace. And their value number one, would you believe, links directly with this presentation. All right, I'm ready to reveal it. Their first value is actually go get it. Go get it. Bring the mindset of a champion. Now, remember, I'm about to reveal the 5 traits that all champions have in common. Just go and get it. Take action. And then I'll read a little section off their website directly. It says, our ambition is what drives us to achieve our mission. How we define a champion mindset isn't based on how we perform on our best days. It's how we respond on our worst days. Now, just remember that because that's going to relate directly to trait number 4 that I'm about to share in a minute. We hustle, embrace the grind, overcome adversity, and play to win for the people we serve because it matters. And I've always had the philosophy that as a coach, I'm in service to whoever is in front of me. Overcome adversity, how we respond on our worst days. This is a trait that you'll see that champions share in common, and something that is so, so important in the workplace as we move into our new normal. So I just wanted to share that. And just thanks to Helen Thompson I absolutely love working with her. She's as I said, the global director of L&D for Uber. So Uber are very, very lucky to have her. And I'm very grateful to work with her. All right. So as I mentioned, now we're into section 2 of this webinar, the 5 strategies. You are all on the edge of your seat and ready for me to reveal these 5 strategies. And as I do, I will be linking them directly with what's important in the workplace as well. If you're wondering where they came from, So there's a fantastic coach. He's also a commentator on ESPN. So maybe you might have heard of him if you're any tennis lovers out there that have listened to Coach Darren Cahill. He's great with his commentaries, right on point. And he shared with me the 5 traits of champions. And I thought the reason that I've gone with him, there's a lot of research out there on what champions have in common, but the reason I've gone with what the 5 traits that he believes, and this is tennis players, this is the top 10 ATP men's and WTA women's tennis players. What do they have in common? What are the top 5 traits they have in common? And the reason I chose him is because when I had the opportunity to interview him on the coaching podcast, he was extremely vulnerable. As we know, thanks to Brene Brown, the strength in vulnerability, in sharing this story around what he thought leadership was all about, which was push and lead from the front and show strong leadership by just telling everyone that this is what we need to do, especially after Simona Halep there had a loss in a Grand Slam final. And then he talks about this notion of someone, the strength and conditioning trainer, tapping him on the shoulder and just saying, hey, you're pushing too hard. And sometimes you just need to take a back step, listen, sort of listen to the whole team and really listen to what Simona's valuing right now. And just take your foot off the accelerator. And the minute he did that, the whole ethos, the whole culture of the team changed. So I thought I would go with his 5 traits, what champions have in common. It's also what I've experienced coaching on the tour and representing my country as the Junior Fed Cup coach for many, many years. And the experience being around high performance players, I really strongly value and agree with these traits. All right. The first one is work ethic. Nobody works harder than Rafael Nadal. He is, I'm sure I don't need to convince any of you here, but really he's a class above the rest when it comes to detail, discipline, and just being able to be relentless over and over again. So in the workplace or in the corporate world, what we're thinking and what we're talking about here is discretionary effort. And now the challenge that we all face in a world where we're moving forward to this new normal, as we spoke about, is how do you breed this in a work from home environment? So when we get to our tactics, I'll be sharing 1 or 2 things around that. But I think it is something for us to think about, something for us to consider when it comes to the work ethic of the people that within our organizations and their discretionary effort, and how we breed that and nurture that within this new environment. So work ethics, number 1. Number 2, purpose. Roger Federer, the GOAT, we mentioned him earlier, okay, doesn't do anything unless it's on purpose, being connected to the purpose. I know in my coaching philosophy, in chapter 2 anyway, I certainly don't do anything unless I know my purpose. I need to feel connected to my purpose, not too dissimilar, of course, in the workplace. Think alignment and contribution. Our employees need to really think about, do I feel like I'm engaged with my work that uses my skills and my capabilities? And do I understand how I contribute to the business goals? Because at the end of the day, if I don't believe that I know how I actually connect to the bigger purpose, then why would I stay within an organization? So purpose, alignment, contribution, so important. Traits of champions, traits within the workplace. Number 2, purpose. Number 3, belief. There it is. There's my little ball again. Believe. And what we're talking about here, I'll touch on Victoria Azarenka first. So I had the opportunity when Australia was playing Belarus, and Victoria was 12, playing in the 14 World's Championships. And she'd gone on and she'd beaten our number 1 player. And my number 2 player was 4-1 up in the first set. They were winning 4-1. And Azarenka, after my player had done 3 double faults in a row at 4-1 up, and she went to the side of the fence, she put her arms on the side of the fence and she said, Bella, 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 roosh, roosh, roosh. And I was like looking down going, who is this girl? Oh, it's that number 1 girl. Her name's Azarenka or something like that. And she had such belief and such passion and such deep desire to win, and believe that she could win, and that believe that she would do anything for Belarus. It was a moment in time that I'll actually never forget. And I've loved seeing her come back after being a mum and have that belief again, which was really awesome to see in the US Open last year. In the workplace, we need to think about work engagement. So the higher the work engagement, the more you believe in the mission and the vision. And is the mission and the values connected with your values? I do so much work with values within companies, within sporting teams, and the values, as we saw with Uber, have to be aligned. You have to believe in them. And the stronger the engagement, the higher the productivity, the higher the retention, and no doubt, the more profitable the company. So this trait cannot be underestimated. All right, I mentioned earlier, trait number 4 is going to be one of the most important traits 2022, 2023, moving into the future. I know you're all on the edge of your seat. So before I give it to you, who can tell me what was trait number 2? First person in the chat box, what was trait number 2? Ting. Good job, everybody. Purpose. All right, number 4 starts with R. Does anyone want to have a guess? Resilience. Now, if we think about tennis for a moment, let's start with that. And we think about some stats. This is from about 5 years ago, but it still holds very true today. Both Federer and Serena finished world number 1. They had won a ridiculous amount of matches in that year. It was something in the 90s. I can't quite exactly remember, but they'd won, let's say, 92% of all their matches for the year. Here's the really interesting thing about tennis. How many points out of 100% do you think that they lost? So they've won all these matches, but how many points did that mean that they had won versus lost? So in the chat box, have a guess out of 100%. So let's start with how many points that they won, how many points they won. So they've won all these matches for the year. They finished world number 1 by the end of the year's rankings. How many points did they win out of a percentage? And have a go, how many points they lost? I'll reveal that answer in a minute. I'll give you 5 more seconds. Just have a go. Remember, you can't get it wrong, because taking action is more important than anything in this world. Have a go. All right. So they actually won 55% of all points, 55%, which of course means that they lost 45% of all points. Tennis, make no mistake about it, teaches life lessons, because you have to experience micro moments of resiliency. You have to basically come second almost every second point. You win a point, you lose a point. You win a point, you lose a point. If you dwell on that, then of course, what's going to happen? Downward spiral. You have to get over yourself quickly. And whether I'm working with a player or in the workplace, one of the strategies that we use is just called the snap technique. So just lifting it up. Yep, it's okay. For 3 seconds. Yep, I'm allowed to be disappointed in myself. Bam, snap it down. Say the word stop, helping you then to realign with your anchor and your affirmation to move forward to what it is that you want. You can be tough on yourself, but in an empowering way, and it's strengthen that inner voice. We know that Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles, 2 incredible athletes going through some difficult times. Resiliency, doesn't matter if it's in the sporting world or in the corporate world, is something both on the court, off the court, on the field, off the field, that we experience, that we all go through. So this is just a micro little technique. And we obviously have a lot of macro techniques as well to help build resiliency. Because in the workplace, I know that there's a lot of time spent measuring stress. And with that stress, the question is, do I believe that the amount of stress that I experience is reasonable for me in the role that I'm doing? And if it's not, then this is directly linked to my intent to stay. So even if I have high work engagement, and I feel aligned to the purpose. I have pride in the organization. I have a high score on relating to the mission and the values. There is a direct correlation between the level of stress that the workforce experiences or the person experiences and their intent to stay. So that there directly relates to the champion quality of resiliency. What other strategies can we use? Well, I've often been told that I am potentially the female version of Ted Lasso, minus the mustache, of course. And so let's all enjoy this little clip and let me know in the chat box if you are a Ted Lasso fan. But another micro resiliency technique coming up right here.
You know what the happiest animal on earth is? It's a goldfish. You know why? No. It's got a 10-second memory. Be a goldfish, Sam.
Be a goldfish. 10-second memory. Yes, it's okay to dwell on maybe something that hasn't gone well. And then, boom, future-based thinking to be able to then return to the present, execute, and deliver. It's something that I work on with my athletes, in my executive coaching. Really, future-based thinking is what I call it. So it's important, yes, that we develop these skills, and resiliency is super, super important, more so than ever in the workplace today. Trait number 5, the final trait, is teamwork. Now, I know that I've got a picture there of the Bryan brothers, and yes, they're a doubles team, famous doubles team. Make no mistake about it. Often people think of tennis as an individual sport. I am here to shatter that belief. It is 100% not an individual sport. Even at, say, a junior level, maybe some of you have kids that play tennis, and exactly that. There's the coach, and then there's the parent that needs to practice with the kid, and there's the whole team that goes into the development and putting that player at the center of the development. And I really do believe that tennis is a team sport. It wasn't until I traveled from Melbourne, Australia, all the way to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I know, who can believe it? Just outside of Nashville. For those of you who don't know MTSU, I was a Blue Raider for college tennis. And one thing that, I loved was playing for someone more than myself, which is, of course, the workplace. And this is, remember, a trait of what the champions have in common. They've got a great team around them. And if you look at some of the best players in the world, they've had that team for quite some time. So it's not a high turnover of coaches. Some players, yes, but the majority of the ones who've been the most successful, because they have trust. Another word that's so important in coaching, so important in building this new workforce. And in the corporate world, if we think about how does that relate, team connection. So in other words, do I believe that teams within my team and the teams within my organization work well together? Do I trust my team leader, my team members? And make no mistake about it, you have to create the space. You have to potentially make meetings optional. Maybe, like I mentioned earlier, it's a walking meeting or informal opportunities to connect. I did run a dating business once. Chapter 1, doubles for singles. I got 2 marriages out of it, but only one is still together. But it was all about creating that sense of team connection through great questioning skills. You weren't allowed to ask, what do you do for a living? Where do you live? And what school did you go to? So we banned those questions from the start. And instead, we asked really questions that go beyond the surface. So I also done a lot of things in the last 12 months with virtual team, sort of informal catch-ups, little post-it notes. Never have I ever jumped out of an airplane. You just hold up the note. What virtual cooking classes, so people bringing in the culture, again, that work-life integration. So we're getting to know people on those sort of levels. It is possible to still create that team connection, and we need to make sure that this happens. You have to create the space and the time for even curiosity conversations and create that culture of curiosity to help build that team connection. I wholeheartedly believe in that. And I think, again, it is going to be so important for the future. All right, so first person in the chat box, give me a summary of the 5 traits. Let's see how fast your fingers can work to reel off and list those 5 traits as we get into section 3 of our webinar today. It is the tactics, the how. How do we implement these strategies? So yes, Emma, I get it. This is what the champions have in common. This is how it relates to my world and my environment. But how do we do that? Let me share just a couple of things that I believe are important. Number 1 is that even the GOAT, again, I've mentioned him a few times now. I am a big fan. This is correct. Even the GOAT has a coach. Now, this coach here is, anyone want to have a guess? And a famous Australian coach. And he's a fantastic coach. I got to ask him what he holds to be really important as a coach. One of the traits that Tony Roach is his name. He said is to respect is not just a given, it's earned. And he said that, and he's done so many amazing things. And no matter whatever player he works with, he doesn't just believe that they should respect him. He believes in earning that respect. Even the best players in the world have coaches. Make no mistake about it. Once again, I know I've said that a few times now. I'm passionate about this topic because the coach as manager is the way of the future. The mentor as leader is the way of the future. Wearing that hat, the manager hat, the leader hat, whatever hat you need to wear. Sometimes you'll need to mentor, sometimes you'll need to coach. I believe in a hybrid approach, passionately believe in a hybrid approach, and 100% in a coaching culture within the workplace. So do you have a coaching culture within your workplace? Do you see the relevance of coaching in today's new world? Hopefully, yes. And if you do, we're on the same page, because people need the support of a coach. They need that support of how to integrate their work life together so they feel aligned with your organization. So just have a reflect on that. Let me know in the chat box, do you have a coaching culture? And yes, can it be improved? Let's ask ourselves, not just do we have a coaching culture, but what makes a great coach? How do we bring these qualities to life? I'm going to share with you 3 examples within the tennis world from amazing people, amazing coaches, and 3 in the corporate world. And just a quick note to let you all know that this, What Makes a Great Coach, is my new book that is coming out very, very soon. So excited to share it with everybody. And it's based on research of 500 coaches. And the question that I ask these 500 coaches, some from my podcast, some when I just get the opportunity to meet them, is in 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what makes a great coach? Go ahead in the chat box now. Let me know what you think makes a great coach in 1 to a maximum of 3 words. And the beauty is you cannot get wrong unless you don't take action. So write down in the chat box what you think makes a great coach. Only allowed 3 words. It could be a sentence, it could be 3 qualities, as I share with you some pretty incredible people in the tennis world. That's myself interviewing Judy Murray there. She's one of my mentors, great friend, colleague. We've both been speaking in the world of tennis for the last 10 years. And she said, someone who listens. This is Patrick Mouratoglou, who's Serena Williams' coach. And he said, you have to be able to hear what the player is thinking. He took the concept of listening. He said, yes, you have to listen, but you have to hear what the player is thinking. You have to go beyond the words and really dig deep into what you're hearing beyond the words. There it is there. Results, both in the corporate world, you're measured by your results. So are we as coaches. And expectations. He said there's no greater honor than to have high expectations for your player. And he shared that on the coaching podcast. And finally, the great Billie Jean King. She's done so much for gender equality. She's a sporting icon, as we all know. What does she think makes a great coach? A great teacher. Taking people management skills, taking the concept of teaching and dividing that by unlocking the learning that lives within the person in front of you. That's how she's sort of explained it when we took a deeper dive. And I'm so grateful to have met her. And what she's most famous for saying, pressure is starts with P in the chat box. Let me know. Finish that little statement there from the great Billie Jean King. All right, let's turn to some corporate coaches. Jim Lair was in the tennis world and then the Johnson & Johnson High Performance Institute, done years and years of research. He's also a colleague and a friend. Transcendent purpose. Couldn't agree more, Jim. It's not about you. It's about being in service. Another trait that you and I share in common. We're all about being in service to our clients, to our sport, to what's going to bring out the potential in others. Thank you, Jim. This coach you may not be as familiar with, the sport of cricket. John Buchanan, who's now a corporate coach, but he was the former Australian cricket coach. Passion, integrity, challenge. Now, passion, out of all the 500 responses, is number one. We have to bring that passion to everything we do with our energy as a coach. And finally, one of the greatest coaches in Australia. She's also my collaborator on the book project, Natalie Ashdown, on the coaching podcast. She said 3 things that sing to my philosophy: empathy, being able to walk not just in someone else's shoes, but alongside them to see what they see. There's that concept of listening again, and curiosity. I mentioned it earlier, creating a coaching culture and a culture of curiosity is the way of the future in workplaces. Because the really interesting thing that not many people think about is performance under pressure. How does our brain change during the competitive journey? Really, really important that we think about this, that we're aware of it, because one of the first things that kicks in is testosterone. And when we're in a competitive situation, a spike in testosterone levels fuel that aggression, perhaps even selfishness, and an attitude towards others. And would you believe that testosterone levels can increase by 33% prior to competition? Now, when I worked in the sporting field, most of the time this would happen when we compete, not necessarily always in training. The difference is in the workplace, it's almost like this competitive level is all the time. Potentially you're at that level trying to perform all the time. So this is something to be really aware of, because what else happens? How does the brain change? The anterior cortex. So we've got our neurons here, they're lighting up and they're assessing risk versus reward, whether something is competitive and how intense our reaction should be to that competitive scenario. So that's kicking in. And then we have the dopamine feedback loop. When you win, okay, the dopamine feedback loop remembers how you achieved your victory in order to replicate those behaviors. And the things that happen during that dopamine feedback loop, we've got the oxytocin, which is that hormone of trust and social belonging. And we've also got adrenaline and cortisol, which is a cocktail of fear, anxiety, and stress. So the brain will remember how it achieved the victory and the loss. Very, very important. So that finally we get what's called the reward network. And with the reward network, this system allows the brain to link behaviors and rewards in order to help to recreate the positive emotion in the future, which is what we want when we win, so that we can do it over and over again. Or in the words of Vince Lombardi, he's the one that said, winning is a habit. It absolutely is. And I think what's interesting about this is that there are 120 million neurons in the brain, okay? Dopamine was discovered in 1958, and it takes 16 regions of the brain to control the reward network section. So when we take all that into account, the science of all that, and we think about what does that mean for us, how do we reproduce those feelings that we want so that we can reproduce that winning effect? And how do we nurture talent, of course, which is what we're all about. Performance under pressure. Most people are all about, yes, how do I maximize performance? But they forget the pressure piece. This is what I'm all about. This is my genius model here. I work with a lot of companies and clients, have been doing for the last 10 years. And there's 3 sections to the genius model. The first is, of course, no surprises, pressure. How do we deal with pressure? How do we align our values? And how do we become more self-aware of our behaviors under pressure? So important for managers, leaders, and coach. At the top of the genius model is, no surprises there, our performance. And the second module within what I call my PUP system, I think that's very hilarious here in Colorado, PUP, PUP. There's a brand new PUP everywhere I look for the last little while. Stands for, so we've got pressure, we've got performance, and routines. Routines. People need help with this. They need help structuring their home, especially their work from home way of doing things. The habits that they have need attention, need focused attention. And finally, the secret sauce to the genius model is energy. In case you can't tell, I have a lot of energy. I'm very passionate about using this energy to bring people along, helping them with their energy, whatever. It doesn't have to be the same as mine, but they need to be able to find what their state is under pressure, because I know that that is so important in the workplace. It's so, you're under pressure most of the time, trying to hit deadlines, KPIs. And the secret sauce within energy is language, discovering your inner coach. The words we say, they mold that neuroplasticity of the brain. The way that you talk to yourself becomes the strength of your inner coach, your private inner voice. And we have 65,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of those are already negative before we've even started. So how do you take care of that? How do you strengthen your inner voice? How do you become aware of what patterns are not serving you? So I just wanted to share 3 of the 9 modules within the performance under pressure genius model. These are some of the ways that I help companies and individuals with these really important traits to then be able to have those champion qualities. So I'll just take a deeper dive into each one of those. Becoming self-aware of your performance under pressure. This is by far the best tool that I've seen so far. I know there's lots of tools out there. I'm not saying you have to use this, but this is the one that I use because it measures your natural state and your state under pressure. And so therefore giving some advice to managers, to coaches about how you're going to perform in your natural state and then when you're under pressure, and knowing how to adapt that as a coach is absolutely critical for bringing out the best in players. It's like when I'm warming up a team and then we go and I'm sitting courtside and they're representing their country. It's a whole set of new behaviors that play out. And quite often there's not many people where I've done this inventory with where they've been the same. Their natural state and their under pressure state is the same. So having an understanding around this is so important. And this tool is through a company in France that I've been working with. And the tool is called Rise Up. So it's super awesome. And RISE stands for Results, Interaction, Stability, and Equity. So it's one of the best that I've seen. Routines. Also just want to mention, since moving to Colorado, I've looked at a collaboration with a company called The Process in Capitol Hill, downtown Denver. So these are dedicated time for people to come and work, whether they work for your company, they can come in to an absolutely beautiful space and they work solidly for 90 minutes and then they talk about what they achieved. So it's connection, collaboration, and it's working on flow state and people's habits, and it's bringing people back together again, but in a new way. So they might not need to go to the office. They could come to The Process and do some work, or there's online versions as well. But there's an example of some of the ways that we deal with reprogramming those habits, which begins with your routines and forming those new habits. And then finally, as we mentioned, language, bringing energy to your language, how you're talking to yourself. This was a corporate day with Virgin Australia's frequent high-flying clients, and the superstar that is, we haven't had the chat box in a while, so please let me know if you recognize this superstar, former tennis player, retired now, in the chat box. Starts with M, second name starts with S. And it was 7 o'clock in the morning, and Maria Sharapova asked me how many coffees I had at that time in the morning, where I had 17 corporates that had to play in with her. They wanted to play against her. Plus, she didn't want to move that much because it was during one of the Australian Opens. You can see it was a little while ago. I think it was 2008. But being able to have the energy to create the environment for her to feel comfortable, for people to feel at ease, and to ask great questions to help understand how she thinks, to be able to impact these people, was one of the most rewarding corporate experiences that I've had to date. And as I mentioned earlier, VaynerMedia, Gary Vee, Claude Silver, who is the Chief Heart Officer, we ran a workshop that was all about empowering and strengthening that inner voice. So rather than focusing on things like I should do this, or I have to complete this project, it was about playing above the line. So words like I choose to do this, and being able to strengthen and just pick up on those little idiosyncratic ways that we habitually talk to ourselves, to be able to discover our inner coach, so we can remember ROI, return on investment, equals, I said it earlier, the Sherpa formula in Australia, IOR, which stands for improvement on relationships. So thank you to Claude and the team there for that opportunity to help them work on discovering their inner coach. All right, we have reached section 4 of this webinar, the game plan, the now. Of course, I'm going to use tennis scoring, 15, what comes next, 30, then 40, and game. We're getting to that. All right, I invite you to take action. For 15 points, just come and experience the process in town. I'm one of the collaborators there. It's a great space for small teams, masterminds, workshops, and just come and experience it for free. And that's valid up until the end of February 2022. So Paul Shirley and myself have collaborated there to provide those opportunities to help this new looking workforce. So if you want to go for 15 points, absolutely no loss. 30 points. PUP, my PUP coaching, one-on-one for leaders, managers, coaches, performance under pressure coaching. That's what I do. It's what I love to do. And if you'd like to do that, you gain 30 points. I'll let you know how to get in touch with me in a moment. And for 40 points, if you've enjoyed this presentation and you'd like me to come and speak at your organization, I help turn motivation into activation. And there's a number of different topics that you can choose from. What do all champions have in common is just one of them. And I also love talking about what do all champions have in common from a failure perspective. Why do they fail? The reasons are very similar to what we all experience. And if you go 15, 30, 40, you may even want to win the game. I'm going to be running my first, by the time this virtual presentation comes out, I would have already run my first PUP retreat in Costa Rica for 4 little team leaders. I shouldn't say little. What I meant is they're a small group of people that are coming together for 5 days in Costa Rica to experience the 9 modules of the PUP process, the genius model that I shared earlier. Well, I only shared 3 of the 9 modules. So if you'd like to hear more and know what the rest of them are, I'd love to share it with you so we can all see beyond what we sometimes see in the mirror. Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction of knowing and learning always brings it back. Again, my green card, you can see here, I just received my green card very recently. So excited to be here in Colorado as my base. What a wonderful place it is. But a great international airport, pretty much to fly anywhere in the world. But super excited that I just received my green card and have managed to transfer all my qualifications from Australia over. I'm a PCC coach, certified NLP, emotional intelligence coach. And if you just want to have a chat and ask me whether all spiders and snakes in Australia are as deadly as what you see on TV, then just kidding, of course, a 25-minute needs analysis call, text me. There's my number right there. And if you do that within the next 24 hours, when the book is ready, which I promise is definitely early 2022, you'll receive a copy of What Makes a Great Coach. Just take action. Just text me right now and let me know your name, your company, and we can set up that needs analysis call. If you do it within the next 24 hours, What Makes a Great Coach is what that stands for down there. Will be in your hands 2022. Here we go. All right. I mentioned if you stuck on this call and you made it all this way, congrats, by the way. That's close to 1 hour of our life that we'll all never get back. That was a moment in New York where Roger Federer was walking from a corporate event back to his helicopter. He sort of turned around and I think he accidentally put his arm around me. But look, I captured the moment in 1 to a maximum of 3 words. What did Roger Federer say makes a great coach? Someone who listens. It's been another great theme. I'd love to listen to what you have to say. What are your greatest challenges? And to see if I can provide and help provide a coaching culture and some solutions, because talent is not nearly as important as execution. I have a TEDx talk called Unleashing Female Potential. Please check it out. There's the coaching podcast where Simon and Blair and I talk about some of the parallels and differences between sport and business coaching. And as I mentioned, my new book is coming out soon. So if you want to find out more, just scan that QR code right there or email me at info@emmadoyle.com.au, because I always say that the ball to take action, my believe ball, is in your court. Thanks, everybody. See you all soon.